What is up, you guys? Glitches here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm bringing you my second Dauntless Awakening build. The highly requested second choice of everyone in the comments was an updated axe build, so that is what I'm bringing you guys today. And I must say, it's probably one of the most efficient and optimized builds that I've made yet, and it's very, very strong. I'm calling it the ultimate Snowball build because it does start out a little slow, but after your first behemoth kill, whether it's during a hunting ground session or an escalation, you ramp up insanely fast and get almost a max, well, actually not almost, you do get a max 10 stacks of 3 different buffs with this build, including a bunch of other really helpful perks as well. So let's jump right into it. Before I get into the details though, I will preface this again, much like my previous video, and let you guys know that this probably is going to be a little bit longer when I go into detail about everything you need to know. So I'm going to have timestamps down in the description so you guys can skip around a little bit quicker. And I will also have 2 links at the very top of the description for 2 alternate variations of this build. Because we're using axe, one thing that I wanted to test out that used to work in the older version of Dauntless was Energize to help us build our determination meter faster, because in the old version Energize did work with axes. However, after my testing, I found out that right now, for whatever reason, Energized is not working with axes at all. I tried it with and without, and my meter was increasing at the exact same rate. So I'm going to have an alternate build, the one that I'm going to be using currently in this video that I'm going to show off now, and an alternate build that is very similar, uses the exact same armor pieces, but has Energized instead of one other perk that we have, just in case the devs fix that issue and Energize does end up starting to work with axes, because it is a nice perk to have on axe. So I want to make sure I have both variations, so I'll make sure to have those 2 links down in there so you guys can use that as a quick reference cheat sheet later on after you're done watching the video. So be sure to check those out. But first thing that we can get into is the weapons, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm using for the primary weapon the Eternal Winter. Fantastic axe, probably the strongest axe in the game in my opinion. It's got 3 really broken perks on it, or abilities rather. Grim Onslaught, always a fan favorite. You activate the special to throw your axe. It deals a great deal of damage and bounces back, and if you catch it, it will grant you additional determination. The passive is going to be Frozen Brand, another very strong ability. Dealing damage to a behemoth places a freezing brand on the part that you hit. After a time, the brand will either detonate, or you can attack it to detonate it early, dealing increased damage. This has a short recharge time, which will get upgraded further with some of the weapon talents we're going to be taking. And then lastly, its legendary ability is called Determined Strike. After a legendary swing, perform a powerful overhead strike. The strength of this attack is greatly increased by your determination level, and we'll be able to get up to the max level 4 determination with the perks that we're going to be taking. So let's go into that. For weapon talents, these are going to be the ones that I have right now. Ideally, once I get this fully maxed out, I'll tell you all 3 that I would pick for this beginning option. And one really nice bit of information that I would like to point out to you guys is one big complaint with the community right now is time gating. And one piece of time gating that we've been dealing with is the time gating revolving around the 3rd upgrade for all of our weapons. Every 3rd perk in each row right now requires steel marks from the Trials game mode. And if you've used up all the tokens that you have, you would have had to wait an additional week until the reset to be able to do more trials and get those steel marks. However, I have talked to one of the devs directly and have confirmed that 100% in the next update that is dropping on the 19th, steel marks are being removed officially from the 3rd upgrade cost. So now we will have no time gating on our weapon upgrades. You will obviously need steel marks and even gilded marks for the 4th and 5th upgrade, but like I mentioned previously, you only need 3 abilities, or even allowed rather 3 perks per row for any given weapon. So if you pick and choose appropriately and do your research ahead of time, you should be able to get all 3 major perks that you want right out the gate for every single ability of your weapon without having to worry about being time gated for anything. You should be able to get all the resources you need at any time for those first 3 buffs. So keep that in mind. That is an awesome quality of life update that it's coming, as well as a ton of other fixes that are coming on the 19th. So don't get too worried and in a panic. They're actively hearing all the feedback that the community has been giving, trust me, and they're working diligently to make sure all the bugs and the lag issues and stuff are all being fixed. The 19th, December 19th patch is going to be a big game changer with some of the fixes that we're bringing, so stay tuned for that. But for the primary buff, this one in particular uses critical, and I know in my repeaters build I said that I like to stick to held buffs, so I know that I have them at all times. However, because of the perks that we're taking on this build, we get temp stacks a lot, and so for this particular build, I would recommend taking one held stack of critical, and then the two other perks that I would take for this instance is going to be buff 2 and buff number 4, which will increase the duration of all of our temp critical stacks by an additional 10 seconds, which means all of the temp stacks of critical we get will now last 50 seconds each instead of 30, so that's really good there. Like I said, the perks we're taking, we're going to ramp up to 10 very, very quick. So the longer we can hold on to those from round to round for escalations or from behemoth to behemoth during hunting ground runs, the better. So the held duration is actually better in this instance. Moving on to the weapon special, this is Grim Onslaught. First two that I would take is Special 2 for increased onslaught damage, 10% more, as well as Special 3 to reduce the cooldown on Grim Onslaught from 15 seconds to 12, so we can throw our axe a little bit more frequently. And then the last one that I would recommend taking is going to be Special 4, which will increase the determination that we gain from catching our axe from 30 to 40, so that we can build our determination meter faster. And ideally, like I mentioned previously, if they fix energized, that will make the weapon meter charge even faster as well. That's why I'm going to have that alternate build in the description too, because I have let the devs know about that bug and hopefully they fix it. So that we have there for Grim Onslaught. Moving on to the secondary buff. In this case, we have defense. We will be getting defense stacks very quickly as well. So again, I would take one stack of defense, and then I have the wrong one picked right now, but I would ideally get the 2 stacks of endurance. Now, in the instance that they don't fix energized, I would still like to run the Assassin's Bulwark perk, and if that's the case, then you can do the double perk number 2 and perk number 4 for the increased duration stacks. If they don't fix energized and we don't need to worry about a defensive buff, then you may want to take the held ones. So it's just dependent on whether or not that ends up getting fixed. For now, I would pick the 1 defense and then the 2 held bonus durations to make our temp defense stacks last a little bit longer. Moving on to the weapon passive, this is the Frost brand. We take perk 1 to reduce the time before the frozen brand can be applied by another 10 seconds. Passive 2 to increase the damage the frozen brand does when it gets destroyed or expires by another 10%. And then the last one that I would take is going to be, where are you? Reduce the time again by another 10 seconds. So a 20-second reduction total on that brand, so we can do those big explosive hits on behemoths more frequently. So perk number 5 would be the third one. Then lastly, for our ultimate, this is the big legendary swing. Take perk 1, which will allow us to increase our max determination level to 4 instead of 3. Legendary 2 to increase the damage of Determined Strike by an additional 10%. And then the last one, in my opinion, that would be a good choice, would be Legendary 5. In addition to Grim Onslaught, our throwing axe ability, Determined Strike can also raise you to the next level of determination. Obviously, Grim Onslaught has a 12 to 15 second cooldown, and if you just happen to miss that catch, you might have a long wait in between fighting where you could be missing out on a ton of extra damage. So if you pick this up, then your legendary ability will also be able to jump you to that next tier in your determination meter. So that's why I like to take that. If you're doing really hard heroic content and you're or in a group with a bunch of friends, you could potentially take Legendary 4, where activating Determined Strike will grant 50 health shields per your determination level to all nearby slayers. And if you combine that with the max determination level 1 that we took, that means we can get up to tier 4 for our determination, which would mean as soon as you do this legendary ability, you and all your teammates are going to get a 200 health shield, which is pretty good for just a one-click ability. So that's also not a bad choice. They're both equally useful in my opinion, so feel free to pick whatever you want. But moving on to the secondary ability, our support weapon, I'm running the Anvil once again, mainly for Mighty Landbreaker. It's just really, really strong. Activate a special to open a crack in the ground that allows slayers to gain 3 might. This will be upgraded further in our weapon talents here in a minute. By walking over it, you create 1 pickup per ammo spent, and a Slayer cannot gain this benefit more than once every 45 seconds. A few of you mentioned in the comments and pointed out to me, and I obviously did more testing and ended up finding it out on my own, that when you put down that crack in the ground and then switch to a different weapon, the crack actually instantly disappears. You don't lose the walkover buffs, but any of the held buffs, like the perk that I took before on my repeaters build for the held defense, those you will lose because it's just instantly going to disappear once you switch to your main weapon. So I've swapped that talent for a different one that I'll show off here in a minute once we get to the weapon talents. But moving on to the passive, it has Frozen Mines on dodging. You create 2 ice mines that damage any behemoth that it touches, and it recharges every 15 seconds. This will also get upgraded with our weapon talents. And then last but not least, we have the wall, which is the best interrupt tool in the game, in my opinion. It's why we took it for my repeaters build. Activate the legendary to create a wall of ice that blocks projectiles, interrupts behemoths, and freezes them if they are a non-frost behemoth for several seconds. So really, really strong. And again, this is going to be buffed up as well. So let's go to the weapon talents here. For the primary buff. And the one thing that's a little bit different in this particular build is some behemoths like Skarn are just really better with a hammer compared to the axe, in my opinion. So I actually, as long as these 2 weapons are about the same level, sometimes use the hammer as a primary as well. So for this instance, I do like to take the 3 held vitality because sometimes I do use this for an extended period of time. But for the weapon special, this will change a little bit. These are the perks that I took for the repeaters build. But what I would change in this instance is keep special 1 to grant 1 additional might when you walk over it. So now we'll be getting 4 might. Keep special 5 so that we also get the 1 critical, but now drop the special 2, because as soon as our Landbreaker disappears when we swap weapons, we won't get that held 2 defense anymore, and instead switch it to special 4, which will give us 1 held defense as well when we walk over it. So now anyone that walks over it doesn't have to worry about it disappearing. They're just instantly going to get 4 might, 1 critical, and 1 defense instantly, and that does carry over once you swap to your main primary weapon. So number 4 is the one that I would swap. Get rid of number 2 and put it into number 4. Moving on to the secondary buff, again, because I like to use this weapon as a primary sometimes as well, depending on the behemoth, I take the 3 held stacks of might for this instance, just to have a little bit more flat out damage. Moving on to the weapon passive, this upgrades the ice mines. Take passive 1, increase the number of frozen mines by 1. Take passive 3 to increase the damage those frozen mines do by 20%. And then I remove for this build passive number 4, and instead, ideally, I would like to pick up passive number 5 to increase the number of frozen mines by 1 again. So now you have 4 mines instead of 3, which is really helpful. Having the 2 additional held speed isn't necessary for this build because of one of the perks that we're taking. It will get us to almost max 10 stacks of speed really, really fast, so we don't need any additional speed. So you're better off having just more damage. And then lastly, for the weapon active legendary ability, take number 1 to reduce the cooldown by 20 seconds, number 5 to reduce it by 20 seconds, and then I take legendary 3, which will increase the damage that it does to behemoths. We're also going to be getting 10 stacks of defense with this build, and honestly, we're only going to be using the wall for interrupts, so the increased duration and the bonus 2 defense are not going to be as necessary for this build, so I'd rather just have the flat out extra damage. So 1, 3, and 5 for the ultimate ability on this is what I would go with for this build. And keep in mind, by the way, especially when we go into the combat demo at the end, these weapons right now are only going to be level 35, so I don't even have these maxed out, but I'll do a 10 to 50 escalation solo, and you'll just see how strong it is and how fast you can burn through it, like insanely quick without any issues whatsoever, just because of how efficient these perks are. But speaking of perks, let's go on to the armor. So this is the efficient build that I've come up with. You're getting 7 active perks with this build. We're only losing out on 2 points, and those 2 points are actually for energized already. So it's a very easy swap if they decide to make energized work for axes again. It's literally a matter of just keeping the exact same armor, but you're just swapping a couple of the cells around. I think it's like you lose Assassin's Bulwark and you get energized instead, which will give us defense from other sources when we swap that over. But we're getting Assassin's Edge, which will give us 3 stacks of critical, temp critical, every time we break or assist in breaking a part. Assassin's Frenzy, which will give us 3 stacks of speed every time we assist or break a behemoth part, and Assassin's Bulwark, which will give us 3 stacks of defense every time we assist or break a part. So you can see why it's called a snowball build. It might start out a little slow, which you can kind of mitigate with some of your tonics in the very beginning, but as soon as you get 1 or 2 part breaks on that very first behemoth, you're almost instantly to 10 stacks for critical, speed, and defense for the entire rest of your hunt. So it's really, really powerful. Then we have Parasitic as well for endgame content. This will mitigate the damage that you take from behemoths and basically reduce the damage you take by 35% and deal the rest of that damage over time for 10 seconds. But during that time, you get 5% lifesteal, so you can regenerate a lot of that lost health to kind of mitigate a bunch of the damage that's coming in. We're also getting Blade Storm, which is good for axes, to give us 30% additional, or plus 30 additional part damage. And then we also, as some bonus icing on the cake perks with this particular build, going to be getting Deconstruction, which will do 50% more damage to those annoying behemoth objects like the Nazaga and Stormclaw electric pylons and things like that. Those will be able to be destroyed more quickly. And then last but not least, we also get Medic, which is great for heroic escalations in a party. Revive allies 66% faster, and they get healed for 40% more health as well. So really good support perk here. So all in all, I haven't seen a build yet that's got 7 active perks on it, so really strong, and all synergize really well with each other. As you'll see from the combat demo at the end, it ramps up super quick. But moving on to the tonics, I like to take the Frenzy tonic for 2 additional stacks of might. This will combine with the 4 stacks of might that we get from popping our Mighty Landbreaker with the hammer to give us 6 stacks of might right out the gate. And then also a Blitz tonic for 2 stacks of speed. This will help us get those early hits on behemoths when our speed is a little bit lower and we're trying to get those initial couple part breaks before we start ramping up. So I pop those pretty much in the beginning, and then after your first behemoth, you almost never have to use tonics again after that, honestly. And then the cool thing is the Omnicells, you can pretty much use anything you want. They're all really good. I'd try and stay away from Artificer and Bastion. They're kind of like one-off, like specific scenario type of cells, but Tempest is great. It gives you the ability to dash through enemies to get to your axe if it just happens to like throw it and then spawn on the opposite side and you don't have time to run around. You can use this as a dash function to dash through a behemoth to get to your axe and catch it more easily. It's also used to get part breaks quicker. It also gives you additional speed stacks every time that you successfully dodge, which we are lacking in the very beginning, like I said, against the very first behemoth. So this is a fun one to use. Icebreaker is good for your more defensive builds for things like heroic escalations. Discipline's great for more consistent interrupting. And then last but not least, if you want to kind of guarantee part breaks and you're really good at dodging and don't have to worry about having low health, you can use Revenant as well to just do multiple thousands of part hits on kind of multiple parts at once on a behemoth. So this is really strong as well if you don't care about the health. And we will be getting lifesteal from our other perks as well anyway. So it does combo really well. So these 4 Omnicells all work really well with this build. Personally, I like to run Tempest and Iceborne, depending on whether I'm doing a high or low difficulty, but Revenant is just as good in my opinion. So that is the build. We obviously got to rock the cool Ice Brigand full armor set, so we have the etheric frost effects going on. It matched the axe perfectly and the hammer perfectly, in my opinion. I wanted to mix and match, but the set was just too perfect for this build, so that's why we're rocking that. But yeah, that is pretty much the build. Very, very efficient. And I'll leave you guys with a full escalation run, maybe some clips from a hunting grounds run with a buddy if I feel so inclined once I get around to editing it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed it, if you found it informative, be sure to smash that like button, comment down below. I appreciate all of your guys' feedback. Also, if you want to keep up to date with my future content, got a lot more videos planned. Consider subscribing and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of those future updates. And then last but not least, if you want to join a killer community of like-minded gamers, feel free to check the links down in the description and join us on the Discord. We've got over 1,000 members in there now, many of which are playing Dauntless. So hopefully you jump in and we see you guys around here soon. I also forgot to mention in my previous video that I have hundreds of my partner Glitches logo in-game flair to give away. So I'll be doing some giveaways on the Discord as well to to give some of those Dauntless flares to some members of the community, so feel free to join up and get a chance to win that as well. Another incentive to join the community too. But yeah, until the next one, you guys, hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you all on the Shattered Isles.